A very good evening to all our dear viewers and welcome to the live talk show conducted by Global Education and Training Institute. In this series of live talk today, we have with us Sister Monica Cardozo. She is the principal of Canossa Convent, Dhule, Maharashtra. She has been a member of the congregation of Canossian Daughters of Charity, and she has an experience of almost 28 years in the field of education sector. She has worked in villages side by side, apart from giving her contribution to the field of education, and helped and rendered her every possible help to the villagers in the villages. She has been the youth in charge for several years, and currently she is the principal of Canossa High School at Dhule. This evening, ma'am is going to share her views on heart of education is the education of the heart. Ma'am, we are very anxiously waiting for you to deliver your speech on this and would love to listen to you on this topic. Over to Sister Monica Cardozo.
Thank you, Ms. Sunita Bhatt, Relationship Manager. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Dr. Sunita Gandhi, the founder of Global Education and Training Institute, thank you very much for extending to me the privilege to put forth my views and feelings before the audience. Ma'am Sunita, ma'am, thank you very much once again. Before I could start my session, I would like to share with all of you a small anecdote, and here it goes. A teacher took a group of children to the roof of their school to look at the stars through the telescope. Many exclamations of awe and wonder passed the lips of the children and the teacher. But one girl said with feeling, "Teacher, I want to be a star. I really, truly want to be a star." "Why, child?" the teacher asked. "Because I can see that my teacher really loves those stars," came the little girl's reply. When I came across this anecdote, I was humbled to realize that I can be the biggest motivating force for my students. During this pandemic, I came across few of our ex-students who went out of their way to help the poor and the needy in different ways. We as educators can make a big difference by imparting them the holistic education, forming them to be a blessing to their families and to others. The demography of our classrooms having changed radically, we educators come across a wide spectrum of students today. Their lives are in our hands to mold or to mar. It is indeed a deferential feeling to know that as an educator, I have impacted society by nurturing, guiding countless students who pass through my hands. My sharing this evening is based on experiences I've gathered over the years. It is entitled, "The Heart of Education is the Education of the Heart." Education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself, was the firm belief of John Dewey. The field of education, the world today, and all over the world, has been swept by a new awakening in the teaching-learning process. The ounce is now on the learner, and the teacher is looked upon as a facilitator. Our classrooms are increasingly becoming learning laboratories, and as educators, we are called to move beyond our traditional roles and become something like social scientists, or maybe even researchers. So be researchers of human hearts, since we make all other professions in the world. We have greater responsibility as an educator in the world to make persons having hearts of compassion in the war-torn world. Sounds simple enough, but if we reflect a little, we will realize that it calls for more involvement on our part in the lives of our children who have spent 12 to 14 precious years of their lives under our guidance and care. The ancient philosopher Aristotle claimed, "Educating your mind without educating your heart is no education at all." How beautifully he puts across an explanation for the term holistic education, which envisages a student armed with IQ and EQ in equal measure. In the 21st century, this truth has become increasingly relevant. Our time with our students is precious, and we will have wasted it if a student leaves our class with a head full of knowledge and an empty heart. Our founder, Saint Magdalene of Canossa, says that formation of the heart is the most important aspect of education, and that the formation of the heart is the center of affections. She affirmed that feelings and affections are factors that have a strong bearing on the whole educational process. With my experience in educational field, I have realized that children love to imitate their favorite teachers. So it is not what we teach them, but how we teach, behave, and say matters a lot to them at the tender age. We need to take into consideration their feelings and unsaid desires in order to take or in order to form them as a whole human being. In other words, I say to form their hearts so that they become a blessing to themselves and to others. This brings us to the need of the hour, which is that we as educators need to discover and discern the dominant factor in each child so that we can build on that and treat every child according to her his effective capacity. John Kennedy said, "Our progress as a nation can be no swifter than our progress in education." Hence, it falls to the educator to try and look for different temperaments and character traits of the children in order to direct and guide each one according to one's needs. Education today necessitates a paradigm shift in the understanding of the educator to make clear the vision that education is not meant to push problems aside because they are not related to the school syllabus, rather, to work towards a solution to realize that every naughty is a story untold. The naughtiness of the children speaks a lot about them. That is where we need to go beyond our teaching to find out what is that makes my student different from the rest. Giving extra personal time, visiting the homes, to have encounter with the parents, now and then appreciate the child every time he or she does something small or big, acknowledging and appreciating when the child does something good in the school or at home, in order to boost his or her confidence, which in turn will learn to appreciate oneself and others. Doing this, we form the very person to be a blessing to oneself and to the society at large. For example, while one child may need to handle with greater gentleness, for another forcefulness may work well, while someone else may be maneuvered by reasoning. This calls for us to be a continual watch, especially where the movements of a child are concerned in order to step in, steer them in right direction when the need arises. The teaching vocation is a life-giving and life-enriching one. Hence, the years of formative relationship have to be based on love, which is the wise and always aiming for the good of the child. In order to form the hearts of the young, what is essential is attentiveness and solicitude on our part, so that children experience through their formators or educators a conducive environment for overall and formation. Add to that the inborn traits of a true educator, which are warm affection coupled with firm authority and vigilance. What we have learned, others will love, and we will teach them how, says William Wordsworth. Examples are more efficacious than words, and we must make sure our walk matches our talk, for values are caught and not taught. In this day of high-end technology and student-friendly education, the single most important factor in any classroom continues to be the teacher. No laptop, tabs, or mobiles can replace the physical presence of the teacher, as has been indicated with the e-learning program currently underway. So it's a clarion call for all the educators of this generation to be mothers and fathers to our children, since it is said that school is a second home for our children. Only an educator with the heart of a mother can make a difference in the lives of our children who are entrusted to our care. As I said earlier, everything is available to the child on the click of a button. But one thing is not available is the real love which a person can give them. So ultimately, they are in search of that honest and sincere love where they can find security and happiness. At times, both parents are at work and the child is left alone, either with the tuition teacher or nanny. So there is a vacuum created by the absence of their beloved parents. So the child may be in search of love and comfort from his or her teacher. We are playing an important role in the lives of our children, entrusted to our care and guidance. In a world where young lives vacillate between conflicting values, the veracity of this statement assumes greater proportions. The more we think about it, the more aware we become that as educators we can never fully understand our students, for we are constantly called upon to deal with living hearts and minds and not machines. We need to understand that youth is a time of rapid change and confusion. Who can deny the fact that day in and day out, our children find it very difficult to cope up with the stress going from worrying about how they come across to their peer groups, especially on social media, to trying to hide the pain of belonging to dysfunctional homes. That is where we can and should step in. It is a attitude that many enter teaching with the idea of trying to have a positive influence on children and to pass on to them what they themselves know and care about. Within the existing competitive atmosphere, educators need to be able to look beyond the said and did and find the real need of the children they cater to. It is all too easy to share knowledge and fill their minds with innovative and creative ideas. But the distinctive call of an educator is to train and form the hearts of the young to face the challenges of the future with integrity and serenity, calmness and courage. It is not so easy to be a teacher in this 21st century if you don't have a vocation to teach. Since teaching is not a profession but a vocation. Why I say so? Because it calls us to be a role model to our children. In order to form the hearts of the young, we need to put ourselves in the shoes of our children, to understand them and form them accordingly and according to their needs. A great man once said that of all his experiences, nothing gave him unmixed joy, as when on a crowded street, a little child gazing into his face put its tiny hand into his big one and said, "Take me across to the other side." A similar honor is ours. For some difficulty they might meet or a strong arm they might need, I believe God wants them to put their hands confidently into ours, their educators, and together we will delight His heart. Hence, the implementation of faith formation is the must in order to form their hearts and minds, or as well, we call it one's inner being. It's very important. We need to give God to our children. I say so because once one parent came to me crying, saying that my child is not listening to me. Sister, I've given him everything, whatever he wants. Then I asked that man only one thing. Did you give God to your child? He said, no, sister. What I've been giving him or her God is that the values, the sanskar we say, we hold so dear to us. where we find God in them, our cultures and traditions, which are handed over to us by our parents. It is handed over now. It's our turn to hand over these values, cultures, traditions to our little ones. It is not an old fashioned because values don't get outdated or out of fashion. Don't teach them religiosity, but to lead them to spirituality, which is the casket of all values. It goes without saying that we try our best to inculcate the values, culture, tradition of our country, regarded as a center of spirituality in our children during their school days. The father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi, had very strong views as to what education should encompass, or and more so, what the role of an educator in education should be. To him, spiritual education simply meant education of the heart. As years pass by, one thing comes into my mind. Great people have lived and gone, leaving deep memories, which will live till the ages. Maybe they were not much educated or they were not rich enough even to get proper education, but that had made a big difference in the society. I believe it is not because they are highly qualified or very rich, but I can say with much confidence it's because they have formed their hearts and formed themselves with good values learned at home and in the school. Values handed over to them by their parents and teachers during their life journey. All of this seems like a tall order. Allow me to share with you 4 C's that can help us and our children in this journey of education. The first C stands commitment. Thomas D. K. Thomas D. Jakes, an American evangelist and filmmaker, claims, "You cannot conquer what you are not committed to." The pedagogy employed should teach children when they are young how to commit themselves to take up responsibilities in small things, especially to commitment to love, which includes persons and tasks. When they love something passionately, they will put their heart and soul into achieving it, crossing any boundaries till they get it, whether it is be a job or a meaningful relationship. Have we stopped to wonder why we have so many broken marriages today? The simple truth is because somewhere we educators have failed to teach the child the meaning and value of commitment. Another common occurrence is that of young people choosing to be in live-in relationships. How has this gained so much importance and recognition? Could the reason plain and simple be that they don't want to commit themselves to one particular person? Is it the thrill of trying new things in life? Or the insecurities of life urging them to constantly go in search of new relationships and new fads? So, where do we start with the inculcation of this important C? At the very beginning would be a good place to start. By that I mean taking the opportunity to upskill the young parents who desperately seek to educate their children in our prestigious institutions, beginning with kindergarten. Not a live, not a one-time introductory seminar, but sessions at regular intervals during an academic year and through all the years that the child spends at alma mater with one goal to commitment. The second C I wish to share is that of contentment. Oprah Winfrey, the well-known talk show host and author, says, "Be thankful for what you have. You will end up having everything and more." Craving comes when the child feels insecure. So it is imperative to inculcate in children the value of contentment or the sense of satisfaction with what they have. Happiness is an inside job, but it is said an inside experience. Life is not about doing the biggest or best things all the time. It is about doing little things in a big way. As Mother Teresa says, doing ordinary things in an extraordinary way. That is what brings real and lasting happiness. The bottom line of education, as I see, is to make children understand that they possess within themselves a treasure more powerful than power or fame. So they can be happy with as much as they have without hankering for more marks, more money, more friends, more whatever. When children feel content with their own lives, their hearts will be brimming over with happiness, and they will be able to encourage and help others. The third C I would like to convey is communication. Peter Drucker, an educator and management consultant par excellence, writes, the most important thing in communication is to hear what isn't being said. The tool of effective communication goes a long way in the formation of the heart. To lead children to the knowledge of how, when, and where to communicate with others is an important task of an educator. Communication skills ought to be taught from a very young age. It is not about what is said, but the way it is said that creates problem for all people of all ages. Let us take a moment to ponder over the sad fact that suicide rates just don't seem to be on decline. I often wonder what is that causes persons to take their own lives. Did they lack the means of communication, communicate their desperation? Did they find too many ears that heard them, but none listened? Was their feeling of insecurity so deep-rooted that they could not speak of their pain and frustration to even a loved one? As educators in such a scenario, we should be asking ourselves, do we really know our students and understand their abilities? Do we praise, reward, and recognize a job well done, however insignificant? The situation today demands that we should not only claim to know our students by name, but should be willing to perceive their pain and heartaches, the fear they have of going home, the dream they dream or dare not dream. As educators, we need to create an environment where our children feel free to come to us to share their feelings and struggles. In class, all children need to be encouraged to speak out on issues and air their views and opinions without a judgmental attitude governing them. In this click button era we are living in, often our children cannot understand what they are going through in life, much less be able to communicate the same to others. The result, failed relationships, issues at work and at home. A kind gesture can reach a wound that only compassion can heal, is a quote from Steve Maraboli, a decorated American military vet, which leads me to the last C, compassion. No matter what our subject, we must make the effort to see that our teaching of it involves compassion because children live with what they learn. As educators, we can never know what is in our teaching will open a door for them, will expand their horizons, or challenge an assumption. We may not be able to establish deep, lasting, or time consuming personal relationship with each of our students. What we can and should try to continuously do is to be present for each student as and when and how she or he needs us. We could just try to care, to love. The way we educate our children must reflect a compassionate spirit in them, one which arises from a consistent ideology, a spirit that will allow them to grow up with a no-nonsense attitude combined with a warm, affectionate heart. Children need to learn to be compassionate with themselves first and then with others. Our broken and injured world can do with the healing offered by many more compassionate hearts. walking in the shoes of another, reaching out to the needy and unfortunate with their time, talents, and resources, creating in society, beginning with the family, an atmosphere of sharing without expectation, loving others without counting the cost, are some of the ways I see of building the spirit of compassion in children, making them realize that this is what makes life worth living. Cheryl, an American author, writes, compassion is about giving all the love that you have got. So, my dear educators of the world, fill your hearts with compassionate love for what you have in your hands. And what you have in your hands are the little ones who are the future of the world. So, it all depends on what you make of them. In Robert Bowley's play, A Man for All Seasons, Thomas More suggests to the young Richard, why not be a teacher? Perhaps even a great one. And Richard answers, and if I was, who would know it? To which More replies, you, your peoples, your friends, God. Not a bad public debt, indeed. A profound reality is the mingling of the divine with the human in God's plan for growth. As educators, we recognize the fact that God alone will make our children grow, but we also know that He chooses to work through people. Hence, He has given us educators a special task. He wants us to fulfill it to the best of our ability. And He promises to handle the results of all the lives we touch for having answered the call to this vocation. So once again, I quote, teaching is not a profession, but a vocation. It is said that many are called, but few are chosen. Chosen to form the hearts of the young, to build a society with a difference. To do same things over and over again with a difference, that is what we are called to do as an educator. I conclude by saying that, as Saint Magdalene of Canossa says, education is the harvest that costs the most, but it also yields much fruit. Proud to be an educator. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And so beautifully you have put across your thoughts on this very important topic that you chose to speak on. Heart of education is the education of heart.
Thank you, ma'am.
One thing which crops up in our mind in today's times is, in spite of so much of advancement in education, why do some people fail to prove their honesty at times and succumb to ill practices? Would like to have a comment on that.
Yes, maybe it is because we as educators must have failed to give an education of the heart or to form the minds of the young, maybe, and the hearts of the children. Maybe also we gave more importance to the book knowledge rather than to form the hearts of the young. And I have seen also, and I mentioned also, it's not the education only knowledge, but much more than that we as educators need to give to our children.
Very true, ma'am. And would also like to know from you, when we speak about education of our heart, right from the heart, why do we need this education of the heart?
I believe that education is the only way that we can form the hearts, the hearts of the young, because they are 14 to almost 17 years, college and school, college level, they are with us, and that's the time when children believe whatever the teacher says, and this is the moment we need to catch when they are young. It is said, catch them when they are young, and this is the time they also imitate the teachers, whoever they love, and this is the time I think so as educator can be a role model and give this instill in them, and only those who are children who are formed, their hearts will be a treasure to the society.
Yes, ma'am, very rightly and very aptly stated. And we do agree that classrooms are becoming learning laboratories these days. and should be. Why not? And we all facilitators should be the researchers of our heart, of human heart, and would like to contribute in whichever possible way as the facilitators in this field to create a heart of compassion, as you emphasized on this, and as everyone knows the importance of being and having a compassionate heart. It's not what we teach, ladies and gentlemen, that is important, but how we teach and how we make the students feel about it, that is more important. Giving extra personal time and acknowledging and appreciating the efforts of the students holds utmost importance. On that note, I would like to end today's talk with Monica ma'am, Sister Monica Cardoza. Thank you very much,
Yes.
ma'am, for joining us this evening. And hope to see you next in any other talk show with you with yet
Yes,
another
ma'am.
very interesting topic to be covered by you.
Yes,
Thank you so much,
yes,
ladies and
ma'am.
gentlemen. See
Yes.
you in yet another talk conducted by Global Education and Training Institute.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.